Today I'm going to show you how to start up the P51. This is a module within DCS. So I'm going to run through the startup procedure. After that I'll do a short video on taxiing, and then I'll do a part 3 which is taking off using 3 slightly different methods. Okay, so this is part 1. I'm not using TrackIR. You don't need TrackIR to use the module. Obviously it does help, but the keys are all built in, so you should be able to move around the cockpit with ease. Okay, so initially you need to have a look over here on the right hand side. There's a generator switch and a battery switch. As soon as that's started up, you'll hear the generator running off the battery and you'll see a light on there. Now it's important to make sure you put the parking brake on. If you don't put the parking brake on, what will happen is that when the engine starts, the plane will lurch forward, and if you've got your head down in the cockpit, you're not going to be able to see what's going on or prevent you from crashing into the side of the hangar. So you put your brakes on, which is usually the W key. You press the park brake and then take your brakes off, and you'll see that the parking brake stays out. Moving round to the left of the cockpit, you're going to make sure that the flaps are up, and over here the carburetor air intake is forward. Over on the left hand side there we have the rudder. Now this engine produces an awful lot of torque and it tries to push you to the left, so what we want to do is put round about 6 degrees of rudder on, which will counterbalance the push to the left when we're taking off. Moving forward is the throttle, and there's the propeller RPM. So we're going to move that forward a little bit, and the throttle we're also going to move forward just a little bit. We're then going to, when we start the engine, we're going to put the fuel booster on. We'll prime the engine, pop up the cap there and press the ignition, and as soon as the engine starts to catch, then we press the mixture control from idle cutoff down to run. Okay, here's the magnetos, so we're going to put them on. It's labelled ignition on there, and we're going to switch the fuel on. Right, now we're going to start the engine up as I described. So watch for this primer to go up, and then you'll see the cap come up, the ignition start, the propeller start to rotate, and the mixture control go down. It's a lot to keep an eye on all in one go, so just watch carefully. Here's the primer. There's the cap, there's the ignition, and the mixture control goes down. So now we've got the aircraft started. Now that the aircraft started, we need to taxi out of the hangar. The wheel, or the steering wheel on the P51 is at the back, and its natural movement is a bit like a caster. It will go in any direction whatsoever, and we don't want that to happen, so what we're going to do is lock the wheel so that it only turns a maximum of 6 degrees in either direction. And we do this simply by pulling the joystick back and then letting it rest back in the centre. If we push it forward, we'll release the lock. So with that, I'm going to shut the cockpit. There's a couple of ways of shutting the cockpit, as you can see by the tooltip on the cursor. We can try and hold that and move the mouse, which is always a bit difficult. People always struggle with this. So the easiest way is to place the mouse on the base of the handle and simply rotate your mouse wheel. Once that's forward, you'll see that the sound drops off quite significantly. Right, now as I said, I'm not using TrackIR, I'm just using the keys in the keyboard. We release the parking brake by applying our normal brakes, which is W. Now using your rudder, now if you haven't got foot pedals, that's absolutely fine. You can use the twist grip on your stick, assuming that you've got one. So you control the rudder with your twist grip. Alternatively, you can use the keys on the keyboard with your left hand. Now what I'm going to do is take off the brake, as you see it drop there, and then start to move forward. When we move past the hangar doors, I'm going to apply a little bit of left brake to pull the aircraft round, because we've got quite a tight 90-degree turn there, and once we've done that we'll be using the 6-degree wheel lock on the tail. So now we're moving forward. Just going to look left to make sure that the wing's clear. One of the biggest problems people do, especially with a wider aircraft, is tend to catch the doors. So now I've just put full lock on, I'm applying a bit of brake, and you can see that the aircraft spins around a little bit, but that's just to get me around that corner. And now I'm putting full rudder on. You'll see the pedals moving at the bottom of the screen, and it is a very wide turning arc, but it's under control. So that turning arc pushes me all the way over to the left. Now I know, we'll have a look in a minute, there's a left turn coming up to put me onto the correct taxiway. So I'm going to move over to the right hand side of the taxiway and then put a full lock on, or part lock, and that will take me around this corner and put me in the centre of the next taxiway. I'm just cutting the corner. Ideally I don't want to go on the grass. It's not quite so bad with these World War II aircraft, but with the heavier ones like the A-10 and that, if you go onto the grass, they're that heavy they sink into the dirt and then you're stuck. So you have to be really careful. It's a wider aircraft, so you have to watch the doors on the hangar as well as the dirt. Now if we move over here, we can see at the top we're going to turn right to get towards the runway. So again, I'm using the keys within the keyboard, so I'm going to start to move over slightly to the left, and then I'm going to sweep round to the right to get the turns in at the top of this taxiway. So you can see that a little bit better now, look, and there it is. I don't have to start turning just yet. So there's two paths there, one directly right that leads straight to the runway, but we're actually going for the other one, so we don't need full lock. We can just start a gentle turn, and we're going to scribe a big arc around these two corners. Now there's a final couple of turns to get us to the runway, excuse me. So again, I'm going to take the left hand side, and we can see the turn over there. That's the first one, and the second one's just past it. So we should be able to hit both corners with one turn, you'll see, and we should then come over to the left hand side in between these two corners as part of the arc. There's the one, and there's the other one. And then once we're over the left, just put just a touch more rudder on, and that will take us around the top corner there and bring us straight onto the centre of the runway. And that should line us up nicely for taking off. A bit more throttle. Once we get to the middle of the runway, we want to straighten the plane up. Okay, that's fairly straight. Let's get in the centre of the plane. And then when you slow down to stop, use both brakes. Otherwise, you might put a slight turn on the tail wheel. So now we are ready for the takeoff. Okay, there are sort of three ways to take off. So I'm going to do the first way obviously first, followed by the second way, and then the third way. So the first way is to pull back on the stick. This is going to be, all being well, a 3-wheel takeoff. So we push forward on the propeller, RPM all the way forward. We apply a little bit of throttle, but not too much. If you push that forward too fast, the plane will tip because you've got the wheel brakes on. And what we're going to try and do now is start increasing the speed as we let go of the brakes, and try and keep the plane centred to the runway, holding the wheel back, the stick back. correcting any turns and slowly building up the speed, and you'll find the plane will just take off by itself. So this is a 3-wheel takeoff, so try and keep the plane central and it'll lift up in a minute. There we go. One of the important things to do is as soon as it lifts up, which you saw it judder there, because you've got the stick back, it's going to try and climb. I'll press G for gears. It's going to try and climb as fast as possible, and you haven't quite got enough speed to be able to get the plane in the air. And typically what happens is when the plane goes up, it loses control, it hasn't got enough airspeed, you're climbing too tight, and the plane will pull over to the left or the right and just drop out the sky. And that is one of the basic issues that people get. So you want to try and fly it quite level at the moment without too much climb. Let the plane build up speed, as you can see. By the speedo at the moment we're doing 200. This is in mile an hour, not knots, and definitely not kilometres. And as soon as the plane's stable, we're going to reset that rudder control, which is there. I'm going to let go of the joystick, and you see the plane's got a natural tendency to dip a bit, so I'm just going to start trimming the nose out a bit. Move the arrow, and if you look here, what we're aiming for is to get that centralised. We've still got a slight climb. As the plane goes faster, it will tend to climb. So trying to level the plane out is a combination of trimming and also being at a speed, a nice cruising speed. What that means is as you go faster, it will tend to climb. So you can't set it to a trim and that's it and leave it. You have to trim the plane for the speed, the altitude that you're currently at. So as you see, the nose is dipping down, the speed will go up, that will cause it to climb. Doesn't take too much effort. So the idea being is that you get it flying nice and level. Now the gauge in the centre of the screen has got a red flag. That's because it's not enabled at the moment. So I've got a slight left there and just need to get it down a bit more. So what you're looking for now is the needle and the ball bearing to be straight, and this needle to be more or less in the middle, which it's got a slight climb still. I've just adjusted the trim, pushed the nose down just a little bit, and I'll let go again, and there we have it. So that's reasonably trimmed